Hi friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Now session is for finance for non-finance executives part 2, particularly covering on ratio analysis. Today in this session I will be covering key ratios and financial health check, working capital management, difference between revenue and capital expenditure, difference between fixed and variable expenditure, break-even analysis, that is break-even point, difference between financial accounting and management accounting. So, how a ratio begins? Let us see. Company A and company B are there. Two companies are there. Assume sales 1,000 million in one company, 600 million in one company. With this information, can you make out really which company is doing well? Maybe by seeing turnover, you may assume that company A may be doing well. Now I am giving profit numbers. Company A 80 million, company B 72 million. I think with this still you may assume that the profit is more in the case of company A and company A may be doing well. Let us see which company is doing really well. So here I am applying simple ratio profit to sales, that is profit 8% on sales in the case of company A, in the case of company B 12%. So obviously company B is doing very well in terms of profit. So thereby ratio begins. Ratios measure the relationship between two or more components of financial statements. So key ratio analysis, why it is important? So ratios are very important to analyze entities' financial position, liquidity, profitability, risk, solvency, efficiency, and operations effectiveness, and also helps in analyzing the performance trends over a longer period, and also helps business to compare the financial results to those of competitors, and lastly assist the managers and management in critical decision making. So there are I think so financial ratios, there are many types of financial ratios, and within that we can classify into almost five categories. Say example, there are few ratios under profitability ratios and liquidity ratios, management efficiency ratios, leverage, nothing but debt ratios, and lastly valuation or growth ratios. Profitability ratios, it measures how best the company utilizes the available resources to generate good profits. Whereas liquidity ratios, it quantifies how best the company would be able to meet its short-term debt obligations. Management efficiency ratios, the word efficiency itself indicates organization efficiency with respect to its asset management. In the case of leverage or debt ratios, measures the extent of a company's leverage, and in the case of growth ratios, shows the relationship between the market value of a company or its equity and some fundamental financial metric. So let us see one by one what are all the ratios covering under each of these broad classified ratios. Under profitability ratios, first gross profit ratio, nothing but gross profit divided by sales, and gross profit is arrived just sales minus and production cost. That is gross profit measured to show how much gross profit exceeded production cost. It is at the top level gross profit. When it comes to operating profit ratio, that is nothing but earnings before interest and tax. You may see in every financial statement, profit and loss account, profit before tax. If you add back interest and tax, you will arrive EBIT, that is called earnings before interest and tax. If you apply the ratio EBIT divided by net sales, it specifies how much profit that organization makes after paying all expenditure except interest and tax. And net profit ratio. Net profit is nothing but profit after tax, and it shows management's efficiency in controlling all manufacturing, admin, selling expenditure to generate more profits. These are all in all the three ratios. Denominator is net sales. Net sales is nothing but net of all taxes, rebates, discounts, everything. So these ratios are used for comparing between plan versus actual, between this financial year corresponding financial year, or particular quarter of this current financial year against the corresponding quarter in the last year, or you can compare apple to apple these ratios with X company against Y company, similar ratios, to know which company is doing very well. And as far as within the company means which period, which month, which year is doing well, how these ratios are moving one period to another period. That way, to measure performance levels, whether it is going down or going down, various kinds of ratios you can use it. In profitability ratios, even expenses also to net sales percentage, you can arrive like raw material to net sale, or employee cost to net sale, or total expenses to net sale, interest cost to net sale, and more importantly EBITDA to net sales. EBITDA is nothing but earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. This is one more important ratio. Normally every company uses this ratio for comparing operating level of the profit for different periods, and also comparing with the nearest competitors. And within profitability ratios, there are three more ratios, important ratios: return on investment, return on equity, return on capital employed. Return on investment is nothing but net profit divided by total assets. See, you have X amount of assets, and for this year you have some profit, and then if you have some ratio, how much percentage of total assets you have earned profit this year, you can compare with the next financial year, same ratio. Suppose if you have invested further money into assets, and next year obviously assets value will be different, so you can compare whether proportionately your profit got increased or decreased. That way you can compare within the financial year with different periods, as well as year on year, or with the nearest competitors. All the ratios can be done like this only. And return on equity is nothing but net profit divided by shareholders equity. It discloses the amount of profit an organization made compared to total amount of shareholders' fund. That is called net worth. In the case of return on capital employed here is nothing but net worth. Net worth is nothing but total equity capital plus reserves and surplus and other accumulated profits plus all the debts of the company. That is called total capital you have employed for the business. That's why you may want to know that EBITDA, EBIT, that is earnings before interest and tax, divided by average capital employed. How much you have earned the profit on the core business. That's why you are taking earnings before interest and tax. Why? Because interest you may be paying for the financing and tax you are paying on the profits. If you remove these two components, you will know the operating profit. That's why on the core business, on the capital employed, how much ratio, what is the ratio you have earned, so that you will know to measure the returns of an organization out of capital employed. All the ratios similarly, again I am telling you, this is comparison between period to period or plan versus actual or this financial year against the previous year, like that. Then when it comes to liquidity ratios, there are four ratios very important: current ratio, quick ratio, cash ratio and net working capital. Current ratio means nothing but current assets divided by current liabilities. Normally, current assets include receivables, that is debtors, cash and bank, other short-term investments, and other current assets, if any, advances or whatever recoverable within a operating cycle or within a period of 12 months. All those are getting included in current assets. Current liabilities means trade payables and other short-term provisions and other current liabilities which are payable within a period of 12 months. So those are the current liabilities. Normally, current ratio, it is 2:1. That is current assets to current liability 1. 2 is a normally acceptable number. Even for the banks to finance you for working capital loans, they will look at 2 ratio is the more beneficial. In least case scenario, even 1.33 is accepted by many banks and institutions. And quick ratio is concerned, numerator again here current assets divided by current liability, whereas in current assets we will be deducting inventory. So quick ratio means it considers if the very liquid assets are available to meet your short-term obligations. Means it measures whether you will be able to meet your short-term obligations at least out of assets, current assets or short-term assets available with you. Suppose inventory, if it may not be recoverable within short period. You may not be liquidating inventory. That's why if you remove the inventory, remaining assets, you should be able to liquidate at any point of time. That's why you can liquidate very fast to meet your current liabilities. That's why quick ratio is very important. And cash ratio, whatever you have at any point of time, cash and cash equivalents divided by current liabilities. Again, whatever we have liquid cash in our hand, either cash or equivalent in the banks. So it may be mutual funds or FDs, whatever, all cash and cash equivalents. So what is the portion it is covering current liabilities at least? That is one of the measure. At least you can measure yourself. Okay, I have liquid cash so much to meet so and so current liabilities. That is one more measure. And lastly, net working capital. Net working capital is nothing but all current assets minus current liabilities. It determines whether a company meet its current obligations with its current assets and how much excess or deficiency we have. That is called net working capital. And as far as management efficiency ratios are concerned, there are different ratios again over here. Inventory turnover ratio, debtors turnover ratio, creditors turnover ratio, assets turnover ratios. Inventory turnover ratios means this is ratio formula is cost of goods sold, COGS, cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. Average inventory is nothing but average, wherever we use average means opening balance of the inventory in the beginning of the period or beginning of the year plus closing inventory balance at the period end or year end. So both the balance divided by 2 is the average. So this one of the ratio, it indicates the number of times inventory has been converted into sales in a particular period of time. So higher the number means inventory turnover, those many number of inventory you have converted into sales. That means higher the number is the better always. Lower the number means you could not be able to convert the inventory as much as faster as enough to convert into sales. Similarly, in the case of debtors turnover ratio, here debtors turnover ratio means total credit sales, whatever you have sold goods on credit divided by average debtors. It shows how quickly an organization collects the outstanding dues from its customers. So higher the number means, how you get higher the number? When numerator is higher and denominator is a lesser amount. Thereby you will get the higher number. So higher the sales here and lower the debtors. Means whenever you give credit, and this shows how fast you are collecting the money after selling the goods to the customers. So if it is lower the number result, that means you are not able to collect the money as quickly as possible. Similarly, creditors turnover ratio. It evaluates how quickly an organization pay off to its creditors or suppliers in particular period. Total purchases divided by average creditors. Total purchase means I am taking creditors as a whole, both supplies, expenditure, everything. Total purchase I am taking and average creditors. Normally creditors, trade payables will be there for the material for which I have to pay. So this is one more important ratio. How many number of times creditors similar to debtors, here payable. How fast you are paying off your debts, trade payables, and total assets turnover ratio. Net sales divided by total assets. It compares sales revenue to its assets. As I mentioned earlier, how much sales you are making with available assets with you. You can compare period to period, year to year, so that whether you are doing well or not doing well, like that you can compare. Further, in continuation of management efficiency ratios, these are again very important ratios. DSO, Days Sales Outstanding, means whatever we have debtors, outstanding balance, how many days of your sales got blocked in the form of debtors outstanding. So, debtors outstanding will be the numerator, denominator will be per day sale. It shows how many days of sales got blocked in debtors. So, it measures the average number of days for collecting receivables. And DOH, it's inventory holding period, nothing but inventory holding period. Numerator will be inventory value, denominator will be average cost sale per day. So, this also it measures the number of days from purchase of inventory to the sale of the same. How many days of cost of sale got blocked in inventory? If you hold the inventory more, so numerator will be higher, number will be higher. The more the number, it will be efficiency level going down. Here number should be less. Debtors outstanding, number of days of sales blocked in or debtors outstanding means you should get lesser number. Similarly, DOH, inventory holding period should be lesser. And DPO, days payable, creditors outstanding divided by average cost sale per day, indicates average days to pay its trade creditors, suppliers or vendors. How fast you are able to pay off your trade payables or suppliers. Then lastly, operating cycle. Operating cycle is nothing but working capital, whatever you need working capital to manage the business, means days inventory outstanding plus days sales outstanding minus days payable outstanding. First two cases, it is your asset, creditors is the payable, so you are reducing. So that is called operating cycle. So ultimately cash conversion cycle will be what is the period of inventory holding you have plus days sales outstanding, how much amount is blocked in your debtors minus days payable outstanding. That is called cash conversion cycle. Now, when it comes to leverage debt ratios, debt equity, debt is the numerator and equity will be denominator, debt divided by equity. Indeed, it indicates the relative between equity and debt used to fund the assets of the company. Normally, banks and financial institutions, they will lend the money 2 times of the equity what you have, max. But based on the nature of the business, based on the industry sector, there are leverage is given, high leverage is given. Banks or financial institutions can go up to based on the industry sector, and as applicable laws, it may go up to 7 or 8, something like that. But many industries or many sector of industries will be 2:1. That is, 2 is the debt, equity is 1. Debt ratio. Again, debt divided by total assets. See, the amount of debt to total assets of the organization. Higher the ratio, greater is the risk related with the organization operations. In all these ratios, see, debt and debt asset, debt divided by total assets, both the ratios, higher the number, higher the risk. And debt service coverage ratio. Debt service coverage ratio means you may have financial obligations to repay your term loans or any short-term obligations. That is called debt, mainly debt related. You may want to know from the profit what you have earned for the particular period whether it will be meeting to pay off the debt. Obviously, some sort of ratio you may want to compare. That is called debt service. Operating profit, that is earnings before interest and tax divided by debt service. It shows the ability of the organization to pay back its principal loan and the interest amounts, both put together. Same, if you want to know only for interest coverage without loan, that is called interest coverage ratio. Measures the number of times interest expense is converted to income and whether the company can pay its interest expenditure using the profits generated. That is called interest coverage ratio. And valuation and growth ratios. These ratios normally very important to compare within the business performance or compare with various companies. Many investors, many stakeholders keep using these ratios even for investing in various companies. Earning per share, nothing but in an organization, net profit after tax available for equity shareholders. That means even you have to reduce from net income, that is net profit, minus any dividend payable towards preference capital shareholders. So numerator will be profit after tax reduced by preference dividend divided by average equity capital. That shows earning per share. EPS shows the rate of earnings per share of common stock. Then price earning ratio, that is nothing but market price, whatever is getting quoted in the market, that is called market price per share, divided by earning per share means I just now explained how earning per share will be arrived. In the balance sheet of any company, if you see in the profit and loss account, there will be earning per share. Earning per share is arrived profit after tax divided by number of equity shares. That is called earning per share. So you want to compare the ratio between market price and earning per ratio. That ratio is used to evaluate if a stock is overpriced or underpriced. A relatively low PE ratio, that is price earning ratio, could indicate that the company is underpriced. Conversely, investors expect high growth rate from companies with high PE ratio. That is called PE ratio. and dividend payout ratio. Dividend per share divided by earning per share. Dividend payout. The company whatever earns per share for that particular period, company may not be declaring dividend whatever it has earned for that particular period. So it will retain its profits for further business use. So that is called dividend out of earnings per share. So that is called dividend payout ratio. Determines the portion of net income that company distributed to owners. Not all income is distributed. Dividend yield ratio. Dividend per share divided by market price. That is called dividend yield ratio. So today you may buy shares at market value today. But after some point of time you may get dividend. To evaluate how much you are earning for your investment means nothing but dividend per share divided by market price per share. Measures the percentage of return through dividends when compared to the price paid for the stock. That is called dividend yield ratio. Now when it comes to working capital management, as I mentioned earlier, working capital is nothing but current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets includes cash, inventories, account receivables, and current investments. That is called short-term investments, which are meant for sale in short term. And current liabilities includes account payables, nothing but trade payables, current portion of long-term loans, and other short-term liabilities. When you see complete operating cycle, that is nothing but working capital cycle. We have cash in bank, and you may purchase materials for producing the goods. So you may purchase on credit or on cash. Assume that on credit means you may have to pay after certain period. That is called again DPO. Then when you convert materials, you may store it, that is called inventory. After producing, you may store in finished goods, that also called inventory. So you will have inventory, finished goods, work in progress, semi-finished goods, raw material, consumable stores, everything will be there in the inventory. So that is called again inventory holdings, days inventory holdings, DOH. And after converting materials into finished goods, after producing the goods, you will sell it to the customers. Then it will be converting when on receipt of cash. On sales, you will get the cash after some point of time. You may extend the credit to the customers, so you will be expecting their uh, working capital getting blocked in terms of debtors outstanding due to credit sales. So this is a complete operating cycle, that is nothing but working capital cycle. So how fast you are converting cash? Cash to purchase, inventory, receivables, again cash. That's why lesser number will be the better number for debtors and inventory, and how fast you pay to the creditors, that also less number will be the better always. And always working capital means current assets minus current liabilities, that is positive working capital. That result positive comes, that is positive working capital means company pay off its short-term liabilities almost immediately. Negative working capital means unable to do so. When working capital is not managed carefully, working capital shortage cause many businesses to fail. And working capital needs or requirements vary from industry to industry. Sometimes due to because of expensive equipment or long processing time for production. So I'm bringing it to your knowledge that key differences between capital and revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure is incurred for acquiring fixed assets, importantly, which are intended for use in the long run. That is called capital expenditure. Whereas in revenue expenditure, it is incurred for acquiring or producing the goods in normal operating cycle. That is called revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure is incurred for extending or improving the existing fixed assets. Certain improvements you may do, or major repairs you may carry out to improve the efficiency of the equipment or improve the life of the machinery. Those cases, major repairs also you can capitalize. That is called capital expenditure. And also it adds revenue earning capacity of the business concern. And capital expenditure will also increase the value of the net assets. Mainly it is non-recurring in nature. And capital expenditure always will go to the balance sheet. Whereas in the case of revenue expenditure, it is incurred for maintaining the fixed assets in a good working condition. It does not add to the revenue earning capacity. It will decrease the value of net assets. The benefit of revenue expenditure is confined to only 1 year, maximum within the operating cycle. Revenue expenditure is recurring in nature and it will go to profit and loss account. Sometimes revenue expenditure will become capital expenditure. Mainly wages, salaries, carriage inwards, repairs, legal and professional charges, raw materials and stores. These are all some of the expenditure will capitalize when asset is now during the construction period. If you incur all this expenditure to bring the asset into working condition, these expenditures can be capitalized. And I am bringing here key differences between fixed and variable expenditure. In the definition itself, fixed means that organization must bear throughout its operational period, irrespective of operations, sometimes whether it goes down or goes down. Whereas variable expenditure defines it based on the amount of production within a company. It varies based on the production. If production is higher, more the expenditure. If production is lower, lesser will be the expenditure. So it is in proportion to the volumes of the production it moves. That is called variable expenditure. Fixed expenditure always associated with the time. It may change after a certain period only. But whereas variable expenditure based on the volume of production, it keeps increasing or decreasing. And the fixed costs are regular and consistent. To keep running the company, these costs have to be paid at any cost. No option. Whereas revenue expenditure, these costs are incurred when there is a production in a company. And production and fixed cost, it behaves, this type of cost remains fixed and does not change. And variable expenditure keep changing. Normally, fixed cost includes fixed selling, fixed administration or common fixed costs like rent, lease, insurance, depreciation, fixed salaries, property taxes, interest, legal and professional expenditure. Whereas in the case of variable expenditure, it's directly related to the sales, directly related to the production, like selling, direct purchase of raw materials, direct transportation, direct labor, and variable selling expenses. Those kind of expenditure comes under variable expenses. One more important, I'm bringing it to your knowledge, break-even analysis. That is break-even point. Normally, you keep uh, analyzing break-even point. At what point of sales I come across, I overcome the loss, then start making profits. So break-even point is nothing but where total sales becomes equivalent to total expenses. That is called break-even point. So break-even point is the level of production where the revenues and total expenditure of the company are equal, zero profit. That is called break-even point. Break-even point you can calculate in two different ways. If you have units, that means production in units, so many number of products, that is one formula. If you don't have units of production, then different formula. To know how many number of units you want to produce, you have to produce to make it zero profit, not to lose money. Means break-even point, we can work out fixed expenditure divided by contribution per unit. Fixed expenditure for the particular period divided by contribution per unit. Normally fixed expenses means for the year or for the quarter, whatever. And the contribution per unit. Contribution per unit means nothing but contribution you can arrive sales minus variable cost, it gives contribution. That is called contribution. So contribution to sales, it will give PV ratio. That is called contribution percentage. So for the units, you can arrive easily that fixed expenditure amount divided by contribution per unit. It will give number of units. You have to produce so many number of units and sell, then you will have zero profit. You will not lose the money. If you don't have units, number of products, simply you have to do fixed expenditure divided by PV ratio. PV ratio, as I mentioned in the top, contribution percentage to the sales, that is called PV ratio. Here, fixed expenditure divided by PV ratio, it gives 1000 rupees. That is amount of sale what you have to make to arrive at least zero profit, not to lose the money. One more important area is investment decision. In every business, in every industry, you may invest money either expansion of the project, expansion of the plant, or diversification of the business, or you may want to invest in major uh, product division. So you may have to decide whether that particular project or investment, whether really you can earn money or not, whether it is viable or not. So normally you keep talking on IRR, net present value. You may be hearing from finance people IRR, that is called internal rate of return. That is main uh, decision criteria, main ratio measurement for taking investment decision. Suppose in this example, you have invested 4 million, that is 40 lakhs in the year 0. Suppose if that business particular project, if you have 10 years life, you may measure what kind of cash inflows will be there future next 9 years. Means cash flows is nothing but after meeting all your expenditure of taxes and dividend everything, this is called net cash flows. So you have one side cash flows. First is investment, that's why it is minus. Remaining is positive cash flows after starting your business or project or whatever. Then you have cash flows. Then year wise I worked out net present value. If you cumulatively if you add net present value somewhere in 6th year it will get 0 and some positive is coming. That is called payback period. That is called payback period. If you invest 40 lakhs of rupees, you will get back your money by around 5 plus years within 6 years. And ultimately, whether this project is viable or not to decide, IRR is very important. Suppose, for the example, cost of capital is 11%. Example, if you assume I get net present value 8,09,100 and IRR 17.1%. So, IRR whatever beyond I get cost of capital, that is viable only. So, it is viable and payback period is 6.6 years, whatever. Then I have given the formulas here NPV formula and IRR formula, but both we can put in Excel, and in Excel it provides easily formula NPV and IRR. You can calculate very easily. Yes, now when it comes to difference between financial accounting and management accounting is mainly for internal parties, whereas financial accounting is mainly for external parties. Management accounting informs internal decisions, provides feedback on operating performance of the business. They can go into minute details, segment wise, product wise, etc. Whereas financial accounting reports on past performance of the business to external parties. Management accounting is timely, future oriented, whereas financial accounting is delayed based on historical data. Management accounting is tailor made to what info managers require, whereas financial accounting regulated by regulators to make sure it includes certain data. Management accounting measures financial and operational performance, whereas financial accounting measures only financial data. Management accounting can be focused on specific areas of business, whereas financial accounting reports on the entire organization. And management accounting based on requirement and it is optional, whereas financial accounting is based on mandatory requirements. Lastly, management accounting. For preparation of management accounts, there is no any statutory requirement, whereas in the case of financial accounting, accounts and financial statements are prepared based on a GAAP, IFRS, or India's accounting standards. So, with this, I ended my session. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.